doubling down. So this term was coined, I think, in connection with gambling. Somebody might have placed a big bet on a horse race or something. Their horse lost. So rather than recognising that loss and walking away, what the gambler does is that they double their stake in an attempt to not only pay off what they lost on the previous lost bet, but also to win what they wanted in the first place. And what happens typically when you double down is you end up doubling your losses, and you make a bad situation, or you turn a bad situation into a situation that's even worse. So I think you can also apply this term doubling down to other situations. It's not just about gambling. Over the last 3 years, we've seen people stake a position, and then they've lost badly. They've backed the wrong intellectual horse. They've made the wrong decision. Obviously I'm referring to decisions that are connected with the old DIVC or global climate warming change. So the sensible thing for these people to do now would be to just sort of admit that they cocked up, made an error, write it off, and learn from their experiences. This is something that my dad always used to say to me. He said, look, we all make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. But what you mustn't do is make the same mistake twice. You must learn from it. But what I'm seeing, I saw 2 examples over the weekend. What I'm seeing instead is people doubling down on their errors, doubling down on decisions and positions that they've taken that have caused some big problems for them. And I guess what I'm saying here is that if you double down, you don't learn from your mistakes. You keep on making the same mistake over and over and over again, and your losses just mount up. You end up digging yourself into a deeper hole. So why do people end up doubling down? One possible explanation is just ignorance. So they don't even know that they've lost or why they've lost, and they still believe in the strategy, so therefore they continue to play that same strategy. The other one is that they know that they've made a mistake, but they're unwilling to publicly acknowledge that mistake, and ego and pride means that they feel that they have to keep on doing what they've been doing, because if they didn't, that would mean admitting a mistake, and their ego is just too big and it's too problematic for them to accept that they made a mistake the first time around. And if repeating the same old strategy results in bigger losses for them, more bad decisions, then so be it. It's almost like those bigger losses are less painful for them than the dent to the ego that would come as a result of them having to admit that they made mistakes. I guess the other one as well is just laziness. So as I've said before, I'm more and more convinced of this. We're supposed to make decisions as individuals, but I think many people, what they do is that they just observe what other people are doing, and then they just copy the decisions that other influential people around them are making, and just hope that what's good for them will also be good for themselves at the same time. You can see some of this with the global climate warming change. People making big financial decisions, and you ask these people some really basic decisions about what they've purchased. Maybe just like, how long is this asset that you've bought? How long is it going to last? And basically, no answer. They have not got a clue, which basically shows to me that they've not done any basic independent research. All they've based their decision on is the behaviour of other people, and they're just seeking to mimic it and hoping that that it worked for them, or the telly box and the newspapers say that this is what we should all be doing, and that's as far and as deep as their thought processes go. So how do I feel about this? I suppose a couple of things really. The first phrase that springs to mind is the one that teachers always used, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You can tell these people that they're screwing up, but if they choose to ignore your advice, and more to the point, I guess, if they refuse to acknowledge that they've made errors, this it's can only lie on their head, can't it? So you've done all that you could in that you tried to warn them. Yes. Also, what's quite interesting from my point of view is that many people are telling me that people are waking up. Well, over this last few days, I've encountered two situations where the opposite seems to be the case. That people just aren't learning at all, and they're just making the same errors. They're doubling down. They're refusing to acknowledge that what they've done over the last 2 or 3 years is back the wrong horse and made some spectacular errors. And the loss is going to be on them ultimately. But I don't know. One of these people, it's will try to not exactly use the phrase conspiracy theorist, but they'll double down in the sense that they'll also add the tinfoil hat onto it as well. And how do I feel about that? Again, I don't feel sort of angry about it. I don't feel. It's just bizarre. That's how I kind of feel of it. And again, another quote that springs to mind is the one from Ayn Rand. That you can deny reality, but you won't be able to deny the consequences of the decisions that you made when you were trying to deny reality. Those consequences of the decisions that you've made are very real, and they will affect you. I guess the other thing to bear in mind too is that there's an awful lot of people who've maybe for most of their life enjoyed quite a lot of material success and status as a result of not thinking, as a result of them conforming to the current thing and being an obedient rule follower. So for these people to suddenly start thinking independently and critically might be a pipe dream on my part, because from their perspective, why would they want to change? They've done what they've been told to do. They've hugged the consensus. They've parroted the narratives. They've done what they've been told to do, and it's worked for them in the past. But obviously with the Britney Spears and the boosters, and now we've got the global climate warming sort of nonsense as well. That's changing. Let alone like the spiritual dimension to all of this, which if you get that wrong, it's the consequences are catastrophic, aren't they? And I guess on that spiritual dimension, the best thing to do is, if those consequences are really scary, the best thing to do is just not think about them, just dismiss it as it doesn't exist. So most of us now realise that we are in a battle between good and evil, and this is what the last 3 years have shown us all. But I was talking to this guy. Now I sense that he's still not at the position where he's willing to accept that is the reality. So you can show people evidence, but they won't accept it. They won't even consider it. What they'll prefer to do instead is just tell you that 2 + 2 = 5. Yeah, and indeed, like their kind of inability to sort of grasp what's truly going on means that they don't really understand much of the world that they're living in, which is, I don't know, it's a shame really, but there's nothing really you can do about it. So as a consequence of that, they'll probably end up making the same mistakes again when the heat is turned back up on them, tiny little bit of coercion, and they'll probably cave in to have an easier life, guess like for atheists, they kind of insist on all of this is it's all an accident. For some that are cultural Christians who maybe go along to church services or something, they've drank Justin Welby's Kool-Aid. They understand Christianity as it's been misinterpreted to them. So like hell is a conspiracy theory, the devil doesn't exist, the book of Revelation shouldn't be in the Bible, and probably not read the Bible themselves properly. So they're ignorant completely that a lot of the Bible is pertains to prophecy, what is to come in the future, particularly end times prophecy. So if you sort of reject that and you keep on, you double down on the Justin Welby's version of Christianity, or maybe even worse, the Pope's version of Christianity, you're setting yourself up for more losses, basically. So the question that I'd like to ask you guys is, what percentage of the people that you know are still in double down mode? They're still refusing to accept that they made mistakes, they're still refusing to acknowledge reality. And in all probability, they'll keep on making the same mistakes. Okay, so God bless.